Hello everyone. Wishing you all a wonderful day. Today, I will tell the next part of the story about Jack and Tu Tien. The winter wind cuts sharply through the open construction site, rattling against bare steel frames and sending dust swirling around Jack and Fu's boots. Around them, the skeleton of a future market slowly takes shape. Metal beams rising from concrete foundations, workers moving back and forth despite the cold. The noise of machinery mixes with the sound of wind, creating a harsh, restless rhythm. Standing between them, the master walks calmly, hands clasped behind his back as he inspects every detail. He pauses at the foundation, taps a beam lightly, then gestures toward the framework above. His voice is low but firm as he explains that although these materials cost more, they have to be strong. This market isn't just another project. It needs to last for decades, so villagers can trade safely year after year without fear. Fus listens closely, nodding as each explanation sinks in. Admiration quietly builds inside him. He realizes the master isn't building this place for praise, deadlines, or grades. Everything he says comes back to responsibility, to the people who will rely on this structure every single day. In that moment, Fus understands that construction isn't only about measurements and materials, it's about accountability. Jack watches the master as well, his eyes thoughtful, a hint of concern flickering beneath his calm expression. To him, this structure is more than iron and concrete. It represents livelihoods, countless families who will come here to earn a living, to buy and sell, to support their homes. One weak decision could affect generations. The cold, dusty air of the site feels unforgiving, but the master's words carry warmth. It's like a small flame burning steadily in the middle of winter, restoring faith that even in hard conditions, some people still choose to put ordinary lives first. Fus thinks quietly to himself that following this man means learning far more than a trade. It means learning how to be a decent, responsible man. Jack glances at Fus, feeling a strange sense of reassurance. The future may be distant and uncertain, but this kind of dedication will leave something solid behind. Not long after, the three of them stand high on a mountain pass along Route 232. The wind howls violently here, colder and more relentless, cutting straight through layers of clothing. Below them, a massive landslide scars the road, earth and rocks pressing down heavily, threatening to block the only route connecting two communes. The master points firmly at the damaged slope. His tone leaves no room for doubt. This must be fixed within the month before the rainy season arrives. He explains the plan clearly. Heavy machinery to dig proper drainage channels, reshaping the slope step by step from the top down so water won't collect and cause another collapse. Fuk feels the pressure settle on his chest. Standing there, staring at the unstable ground, he realizes that one small mistake here wouldn't just mean repairs. It could cost lives. The weight of that responsibility makes his hands clench slightly. Jack steps closer to the edge, peering into the deep ravine below. His worry grows as he imagines what would happen if this road were blocked. For the villagers, this road is everything. It's how they transport goods, reach hospitals, connect with the outside world. Letting it fail isn't an option. The freezing wind lashes at them, but the master's resolve is unwavering. His voice remains steady, almost warm, as he speaks about safety and prevention. It's another flame of duty standing firm against winter's cruelty, sparking hope that even in dangerous work, some people still place community safety above all else. Fuk lowers his gaze, absorbing every word. He understands now. Construction isn't just technique or strength. It's a responsibility for human lives. Jack looks at Foots, his heart easing slightly. The pressure is immense, but this kind of dedication is exactly what keeps villages standing. Later that day, they sit at a small roadside cafe. Outside, the cold presses against the windows, but inside, the air is warm and filled with the rich aroma of coffee. Steam rises from their cups, fogging the glass slightly. It's a quiet moment of rest after a long day. Fuchs takes out his drawings and documents, carefully laying out his graduation project, a design for a small community market. His voice carries a mix of excitement and nervousness as he explains his ideas, pointing to layouts and calculations. The master listens carefully, flipping through the pages. When he speaks, his advice is thoughtful and precise. He reminds Fuchs to include proper drainage systems, to think about long-term maintenance costs rather than short-term savings, and most importantly, to always build for the people who will use the space, not just for a good grade. Fuchs listens intently, feeling something shift inside him. This isn't just technical feedback, it's guidance rooted in ethics. The master is teaching him how to approach his profession with integrity. Jack sits quietly beside them, watching Fuchs absorb every word. He feels reassured. The project may not be perfect yet, but with this kind of mentorship, Fuchs will grow, not just as an engineer, but as a responsible adult. The cafe feels especially cozy in contrast to the cold outside, like a small sanctuary. It's the flame of knowledge warming the soul in winter. Fuchs realizes that this project isn't simply about graduating anymore. It's about proving, to himself most of all, that he's worthy of the profession he's chosen. Jack looks at the master with silent gratitude. This man isn't just teaching skills. He's teaching how to live responsibly. Meanwhile, far away from steel beams and mountain passes, pale sunlight settles gently over a lush vegetable garden. Tu Tien bends down between the rows, carefully sowing cabbage seeds, planting coriander, and tying trellises for young tomato plants. Her hands move quickly and confidently, shaped by habit and patience. Despite the cold wind sweeping across the garden, her heart feels warm. She smiles to herself, thinking about Tet and the fresh vegetables they'll have by then. Every plant feels like a small promise. As she works, her thoughts drift to Jack. He's out working hard today, she knows. Tonight, she'll tell him how well the garden grew, how the tomatoes are already starting to cluster. The garden feels peaceful, almost timeless, a quiet contrast to winter's harshness. Even though she's alone, she doesn't feel lonely. Each growing plant feels like a piece of the home she's building with him. In that quiet moment, hands in the soil, wind brushing past, hope swells gently. This garden isn't just about vegetables. It's about the calm, steady life she believes they're creating together. Later in the day, Jack returns home and finds Tu Tien still working among the plants. Concern immediately colors his voice as he tells her to take a break. He reminds her that they need to go for her checkup today, just to be at ease. Tu Tien looks up and smiles, agreeing easily as she wipes her hands clean. Inside the house, Jack prepares warm water for her, his movements careful and attentive. His heart aches slightly. She's strong, yes, but he doesn't want her carrying everything alone. The small house feels especially cozy compared to the cold outside. It's like another small flame of care warming the winter. Jack thinks quietly to himself that no matter what the results are today, he'll always stay by her side and take care of her. Tu Tien looks at him, her heart full. With him beside her, even the things that worry her most feel lighter. And as they prepare to leave, hope quietly grows that today's visit will bring them peace about the future. The hospital looms large and quiet, its wide corridors echoing faintly with footsteps and distant announcements. The air inside feels cold and sterile, carrying that familiar scent of disinfectant that makes everything seem more serious than it already is. Tu Tien sits on one of the metal chairs in the waiting area, hands folded neatly in her lap. Jack sits close beside her, holding her hand tightly, as if letting go might allow fear to slip in. Neither of them speaks much. Words feel unnecessary right now. Jack can feel the slight tension in her fingers, even though her face remains calm. He gives her hand a gentle squeeze, a small, silent promise that he's here, no matter what happens next. Tu Tien turns her head slightly and meets his eyes, offering a soft smile that tells him she understands. When her name is called, she stands and follows the nurse into the examination room. Jack stays behind, watching the door close, his chest tightening as soon as she disappears from view. The minutes that follow feel longer than they should. He paces slowly near the wall, glancing up every time the door opens, his thoughts racing despite his efforts to stay calm. Inside, the doctor examines Tu Tien carefully, asking questions, checking her skin, listening attentively as she describes her symptoms. The diagnosis comes calmly and clearly: seborrheic dermatitis combined with folliculitis and chronic urticaria. To be safe, the doctor orders blood tests and an ENT endoscopy to rule out any deeper issues. Tu Tien nods and follows instructions, moving from one room to another. The procedures are uncomfortable but manageable. Throughout it all, she keeps thinking about Jack waiting outside, imagining the worried look on his face. That thought gives her strength. Jack, meanwhile, sits stiffly on the bench in the hallway, eyes fixed on the floor. Every sound makes his heart jump. He knows the doctor said it doesn't seem severe, but worry doesn't listen to logic. He replays every moment in his head, wondering if he should have insisted she rest more, wondering if he missed some sign earlier. Finally, the doctor calls them both in. The blood test results come back normal, and the endoscopy shows nothing alarming. The doctor explains that while the condition may linger and require patience, it's manageable with proper medication and care. He prescribes safe medicine and gives clear instructions on how to use it. Jack lets out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Relief washes over him, followed quickly by concern again. It's not serious, but it's still something she has to live with. He nods carefully, asking questions, making sure he understands everything. The hospital still feels cold, but standing there beside Tu Tien, Jack feels warmth spreading through him. Love, steady and quiet, pushes back the lingering fear. Tu Tien looks at him and smiles gently. With him here, even a diagnosis feels easier to face. As they leave the hospital, the winter air greets them sharply. Jack immediately reaches for Tu Tien's hand, holding it firmly as they walk. His voice is soft but confident as he tells her not to worry, to trust the medicine, and to remember that he's always right there beside her. Tu Tien nods, her heart lighter now. The condition isn't severe, and more importantly, she's not facing it alone. She leans slightly toward him as they walk, feeling reassured by his presence. Once inside the car, warmth wraps around them. The heater hums softly, creating a cozy contrast to the cold outside. Jack glances at her and asks what she wants to eat later, already planning to cook something nourishing. He promises to take care of her every day, not as an obligation, but as something he truly wants to do. Tu Tien smiles, her eyes soft. She thinks to herself that even if the illness takes time to heal, with him beside her, she'll be fine. Peaceful days are still ahead. Jack watches her profile as he drives, hope rising quietly in his chest. She will recover. Life will grow lighter again. In that moment, he understands something clearly. Healing isn't just about medicine. It's about staying, caring, and choosing each other every single day. Far from the hospital, back at the construction site, the market framework stands firm against the wind. The master's words echo in Jack's mind. About responsibility, about building for people, about thinking long term. He realizes that the same principles apply to life as well. Love, like construction, requires patience, strength, and a willingness to protect others. That evening, as they return home, Tu Tien rests while Jack prepares dinner. The house fills with gentle sounds, the chopping of vegetables, the clink of utensils, the quiet rhythm of an ordinary night. Outside, winter still lingers, cold and unforgiving. Inside, warmth remains. Tu Tien watches Jack move around the kitchen, her heart full. The garden outside may be quiet now, the market and mountain roads far away, but everything feels connected. Work, care, responsibility, love. Each small action builds towards something lasting. And in that quiet winter night, hope settles gently between them, steady and unshaken, promising that no matter the season, they will face it together.
Xin chào mọi người. Sau đây sẽ là câu chuyện kể về Tử Diễm, một người phụ nữ nông thôn cần cù, dành cả ngày để thu hoạch và bán quýt ở một khu chợ nhộn nhịp ở vùng quê. Mỗi quả quýt cô bán thì không chỉ mang giá trị vật chất mà còn tượng trưng cho hy vọng xây dựng lại cuộc sống với Toàn, một người đàn ông bị mất trí nhớ sau một tai nạn. Dù mệt mỏi, cô vẫn luôn vui vẻ, chu đáo, chọn những quả quýt ngon nhất để mang về cho nhà Toàn và bà cụ đã cứu mang anh. Lòng tốt của cô dần được làm mềm lòng của Toàn, và dù anh không thể nhớ về quá khứ, anh bắt đầu cảm thấy an toàn và được yêu thương khi ở bên cô. Qua những khoảnh khắc giản dị, cùng nhau làm việc, chia sẻ thức ăn và những tiếng cười thầm lặng, khoảng cách giữa họ dần phai nhạt. Ngôi nhà khiêm nhường tràn ngập nơi ấm và một niềm hy vọng dịu dàng lớn dần rằng tình yêu và sự kiên nhẫn cuối cùng sẽ giúp Toàn tìm lại chính mình.